Alright, hi everybody, Big Pete back here at 850 Armor Works. We are going to start the video for the kids Deathtrooper. It's a new kit available. It's really small. I kind of have a size comparison. This is a full-size adult next to the kids. It's significantly smaller. So it'll fit your kids. That's what it looks like on me. It's a little silly. I'm about 6 feet tall though, so. But let's get started into it. The first couple videos that we're going to be kind of going through is just trimming, making, just prepping everything. We're going to go through strapping in a later video, and I'm going to kind of talk through some things. So some equipment you're going to need, obviously, is if you're using any power tools, make sure you got your safety gear, goggles, gloves, things like that. If you're just using traditional methods like scoring and snapping, I would also recommend gloves. You don't have to. I mean, I'm not your mom. So what we're going to be doing here first is we're going to be doing the chest and the back. The chest is going to be pretty straightforward. You're just cutting, right? The return edges are not important on here. So get a little bit of a close up. We're just going to basically take it right down in here into the edge, and then we're going to go all the way up to where the collar is. Since the collar is in it, it's not a separate piece. We're just going to go right up to the inside edge of that collar, not worrying about any return edging. Same thing over here. You can leave the little bit of return edge on if you want. You can take it off if you want. It's up to personal preference. Just remember, and remember this going through most of the videos, is that this is kids armor, right? These kits are pretty darn accurate, but think about you in a kit and think about your kid in a kit. My kids love dressing up, but you know what? They hate it when it starts getting uncomfortable, so they wear it for about 20 minutes. So we're going to discuss a couple different options on what you can do to make this kit a little bit more user-friendly, kid-friendly, whether it's, substituting some plastic for the side strapping and just going to a nylon, piece of 3-inch nylon. Give them a lot more flexibility, a lot more comfortable. So let's kind of get into it. I am going to kind of fast forward on parts of this video. There's a ton of different methods to basically cleaning up all these edges, right? This is exactly how it's going to look when you get it in the kit. I haven't done any trimming to this at all, so yours should look pretty darn similar to this when you get it in. You can use scissors if you want. It works. It's a little tougher. I would suggest getting some big old shop scissors if you're going to use scissors. I have a pair that's about that long. I got them from Home Depot for real cheap. But scissors work. Look, they just bam, right? See, took it right off. So you can do scissors. You can do a scoring and snapping method, right? If you're not familiar with that, it's pretty easy. Just get a nice sharp X-Acto knife, and all you're gonna do is this is just gonna be a rough one, so I'm just gonna do it real quick. You score the line you want. So now it's scored right here. You bend it. Now I just bent the exact line that I carved, and you bend it back the other way, and it snaps right off. That's the scoring and snapping method. It's really easy for larger straight pieces, a little bit harder for when it comes to these corners on the inside, right? Which you can also just get an X-Acto knife and you can kind of whittle it out. You'll end up with these little tiny pieces of plastic all over your carpet or your house or your garage or whatever if you're doing it that way. In the past, I've found that is a very just easy way if you don't have a if you don't have a bandsaw, if you don't have you can use a Dremel if you want. I know a lot of people who use a Dremel primarily for their armor builds. That's fine too. The thing you have to remember about Dremels though, if you do a little bit of a slip on your Dremel, that sucker's going to go straight into the plastic and there's not a lot of saving it. Especially with the Deathtrooper, there's not a ton of weathering like there is on the Shore Trooper and everything, so you want to not scratch it up as much as you might another kit. Again, it's for kid, but you're still going to want to take your time to do this. I wouldn't, if you're using a Dremel, I wouldn't recommend using the cutoff wheel because they can go nuts. If you're going to use a Dremel, go for the sanding bit. The sanding bit will just buzz right into this stuff. Just be super, super careful if you're going to do it that way. I think I'm going to mainly just use the bandsaw to do these, and then a little bit of cleanup with some sandpaper or something's going to do just fine. So I'm going to do this, and then I'll come back. All right, and we're back. As you can see, I have done a nice trim job on everything. Oh, pardon me. I did use the bandsaw on it. Most of you guys will not have a bandsaw. That's totally fine. You can get away with, again, using the scissors, a razor blade, a Dremel, whatever, however you want to get to it. I took it to the bandsaw, then I took it to our sander to just kind of sand out the finer edges and everything on it, but then you're left with all these burrs and everything. And the last step I do is I just come back with my razor blade to just kind of clean up my edges. And I just kind of hold it like that with the blade away from me, and I just kind of carve it in. You don't have to do that. There's many different ways of doing your rough trimming and everything. But that's what we have here. I left a little bit of return edge on everything, except for right here on the neckline. I cut that straight to here. So you can leave the return edging if you want. Take it off if you want. The return edging I have on here is maybe about 1/8 of an inch, maybe. It's pretty small. But right here. So you can take it off, leave it on, whatever you want. Here's some views of the bottom. But that's the chest. We're going to start on the back next. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to buzz it, and then I'm going to bring it back. Alright, just to show you guys, this is what it looks like coming out of the bandsaw. There are jagged edges pretty much everywhere, but all I did was I just gave it a quick snip, just almost up to the line that I wanted at. And when I talk about just using a razor or something, you can again use anything you want. Is I just kind of come in here and I just very carefully draw it back to where I want it. You don't want to cut too far. You just give it like these nice little smaller cuts, and it'll leave you with a nice smooth edge and everything. And then once you get it to the level you want, you're good to go. You can use sandpaper to kind of finish off that edge a little bit if it's a little rough still. Be really careful when you're doing this, if you're doing it this way, because you can easily cut yourself. You don't want to cut into yourself. Another thing I found fairly helpful is start at the opposite end of where you're cutting, because when the knife slips, and it will slip a little bit, it's going to cut into whatever plastic you have behind where you're pulling. And you don't want to gouge into the nice plastic you just did. So work from the top and go down, and you'll have a much better time. So I did not take this over to the sander, just to kind of show you different methods of doing this. This one takes a while. My wife hates this one because I end up having these little black bits everywhere, and they're darn near impossible to get out of the carpet if you're doing this inside. And the winter in Colorado gets a little cold, so I wasn't going to do it in the garage. But as you can see on that edge, it's looking pretty good. I got just a small little return edge here. Again, you can take those off, it doesn't really matter. Yeah. Alright, so I got the back all done. Again, I pretty much went right up to the edge. There's not really a return edge on any of this except for right there, and that's just because I didn't feel like doing it. I took off almost everything around it, nice and smooth. Remember when you're doing this, that it's for your kid. You want to make sure it's comfortable. So those return edges will dig into your shoulders, dig into your back, and make it less comfortable. All right. So now everybody is going to have all this stuff in their kit. Now there's going to be a couple suggestions. You don't have to take them. You'll have all this stuff in your kit to assemble it, but do it however you want. Again, think about comfortability for your kids. You know, accuracy not necessarily as much. But so what we're going to do is, right, it's just a flat back piece, right? You need the side straps that come off. Here's the adults for reference, right? So it kind of comes off. There's a little divot right in here, and it comes over, and that's what attaches into the front. So we're going to do the same thing on the kids. What we're going to do is you're just going to have some random plastic in there. You're going to go, what is this piece to? Well, it's just a piece of flat plastic. That's all it is. What you're going to need to make is a approximate size. It doesn't really matter. It's about 3 inches or so. That's going to glue onto the back portion of this at a little bit of an angle. So right at about here, okay? And then you're going to get your larger piece of plastic, and you're going to just, at that same angle, glue it right about there, just so you have that little crack in it. And again, that's just for accuracy of the armor. You don't have to do that if you don't want to. You can stick that straight under there and go from there. Or what I would also suggest, if you want to make it a little bit more comfortable, you can use this little guy, stick him right here, and then take your 3-inch nylon and then glue that right onto the top. And now you just have a nylon strap that can connect into the front. It's going to increase mobility. Yeah, it doesn't look like exactly in the movies, but again, this is for your kids. So I'm going to glue these little bits together, and then we'll be back with you. Alright, well, I thought, I'd probably just show you guys how all this stuff glues in together. Got a brand new bottle of glue, so nothing's open on it. That's pretty awesome. So now you can use whatever glue you want, right? E6000 is what a lot of people like to use, especially if you're a first-timer. It's going to increase your build time because you're looking at 12 plus hours for cure time for that stuff, where you're going to have it clamped together overnight and then be able to work on it again in the morning. That's one option. Option two is just using super glue. This is gap filling medium grade super glue. It's all backwards because I'm using my front view. And then this stuff is awesome. If you've ever used just this stuff before, you don't know what you're missing out on until you get some of the Instaset. This stuff, you go get it over at your Hobby Lobby or whatever. It's an accelerator. It makes this stuff dry in seconds. And you know how you can glue your fingers together instantly? Well, this stuff, if you get it on with this, it'll also glue your fingers together instantly and also start burning you, because it starts the chemical reaction on this stuff a lot faster, and it gets fairly hot. So be careful when you're working with both these products. But I highly recommend using the accelerator if you're using the super glue method. But all we're going to do, so as I just said, we got our just approximate little scrap. It's a little rectangle. I'm just going to glue it right here. So I'm just going to apply glue to the back side here. We're going to glue it on, hit it with some accelerator, and we will continue on. New bottle of glue is not my favorite. The applicator tip kind of sucks, but oh well. Okay, glue thing, somewhat of an angle, push it on, get your quick set, give it a couple sprays on the inside and the sides, it'll work its way in there, and it will set instantly. Just hold it for a second, just be sure. Bam, done, it's set, all good. We're going to do the same thing to the other side, and I got glue on myself, of course.
Put accelerator on it.
Yes, we will put accelerator on it. It'll make sure it dries quicker and then burn you. So I'll go back in here, same exact thing, get some glue. I'm not doing this to any specific measurements or anything like that. It's not that important. You're just sticking some plastic on the plastic. Make it look like the picture. Get my accelerator. Give it a couple sprays. Hold it on for a second. You want to make sure they're somewhat the same angle, which they are. And if they weren't, you know what? It's now too late, because when you're using this stuff, there's no second tries. When you glue it together and you use that Instaset, it's on. It's not coming off without a bunch of weird damage. That is one nice thing about E6000. Is when you're using E6000, that stuff will peel right off the next day, 3 days, 10 days, a year later. You can get those pieces apart. But it's going to quadruple, if not more, your build time on this project. So now we have our little straps here. We're going to take our larger straps here, and we're just going to not bun them up, but now, yep, see, you just want a little crack in there. That's all you want. I mean, if you wanted to button it up, you could. Doesn't really matter, but the more accurate way of doing it is just a little line. I'd say maybe like quarter of an inch or so. Maybe that might even be too much. Just eyeball it. Make it look like that. Here's my pinky for reference. It's about half the width of my pinky. It's not that important. Again, I would more recommend, instead of using this, use some 3-inch nylon. But we're going to do it like this just because this is what I have on hand, and I don't want to go to the store to get that stuff. So all I'm going to do again is actually... I'm actually going to take my tin snips. I'm going to cut this down a little bit. I don't think it needs to be that long. There doesn't need to be that much adhesion room. Same thing on the other side. Again, this little thing is literally just to hold on the rest of it. So it doesn't really matter how big it is. You're going to have a bunch of pieces of plastic in there. Just make something that will hold it. There you go. You can see it from the other side. It's not very big, but it sticks off just enough. Alright, now when using the Insta-Set, when it's still wet on there. If I was to put glue on top of it, it'll still set instantly. So you got to worry about what you are putting, what part you're gluing onto what, or if you just want to wipe it down, which I'm just going to wipe it down. Give me a second. This stuff will dry, but I want to get this done quicker. Alright, so we're just going to give ourselves that, again, you want to give yourself that gap, so don't put glue all the way over. When you use the Insta-Set, it also turns the glue white. You'll see any glue that spills out over the edges. So we're going to give ourselves a nice little bit of room in between where we have the, where we want the plastic and where our glue line is. Hold it for a second, and of course I just glued my finger onto the back of it, so that's nice, and that's starting to burn. But it'll be alright. That's it. You can see the seam line there. When you go over to the other side, you can see the little crack that's right here. That's it. Easy, right? Now this will bend around and connect into the front. It just hides it back in there. That's it. We're going to do that to the other side. And then we're going to start on to the next piece, which is going to be shoulder straps. So this is what's going to come in your kit. All I'm going to do is I'm going to buzz down the center of it. You're going to see there's a section here, and this section, this is the good section. Cut it from this line right here. That's what you want on there. We're going to cut these guys out. You can leave the return edge on a little bit if you want to. You don't need to. You can cut it right from the inside if you want to. It needs to look roughly like that on the side, where there's just a little bit of an overhang on there, and there's really not much of a return edge. You don't want to cut it straight from the inside, or it's gonna look funny. So I'll be back once I finish that. All right, so I told you wrong. So a little bit lesson learned. I was going back through it. It wasn't right. I already glued these on right. I glued them at an angle. That won't work because when it'll bow up and look really funny. I meant to actually go this way, not follow the angle on this portion, but follow the kind of more straight edge on this portion, so it looks more like that, because it's going to wrap around better. That being said, since I screwed it up, remember I used super glue, doesn't come off. I pretty much had to cut away the bits, and now there's permanently bits of plastic stuck onto the back side of here. That was the only way to get that stuff off. So be careful, because you might not get the second chance. But that being said, I cut out 2 more of these plates, and I actually found exactly what I was looking for. 3-inch nylon, very flexible, very comfortable for your kiddo. Same method is going to apply. I'm going to do the exact same thing, right? So, except at the right angle. This guy is going to go like that. And this guy's just going on top of it. I think I'm going to cut it and actually cut it at the angle of this. So once I get this part glued on, I'm going to cut this guy at an angle so that it looks more like that. If you can, yep, there we go. Now you can see it. So you see how it's an angle there. That's what we were trying to get the effect before. So if you're using the plastic that's going to come in the kit, you want to make sure it does this, so it angles at that slope. So you'll cut your top piece that we put on before, also at whatever the angle of this is, lined up with your back plate. So, but I am going to drop stuff. I'm going to glue my bits on, and then we're going to glue those other guys right back onto it. Use the side of plastic that looks best, obviously. And I grabbed a very dirty piece of plastic, so usually one side of the plastic's going to look better than the other anyways. But that will do. A little bit of glue on my armor. Make sure we got the right angle this time. And we're good. So now you can see, block the light out a little bit. Now you can see, so it comes up over here on the edge. That's fine. If you want to trim it down, trim it down. It's going to look a little funny, I think, if you trim it down, just because it's not quite angled. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to basically follow my line to figure out where I need to cut. So basically I'm just going to stick it over, and I'm just going to cut right along that line to make sure that I have everything lined up and that I cut the correct angle into my fabric. Here, now that I got a line, just keep my scissors straight. Get a lighter, burn your edges because you don't want it unraveling. And it'll line up just like that, and it'll give you that little gap you want right in there, and that's it. So obviously if you're watching this video, it may look a little funny because I messed it up, but I'm going to try and edit this in so it makes more sense. So I got my straps on. As you can see, I got a little bit of a glue spill here. That's what will happen. It'll turn white when it dries. But so I got my little gap. I got my straps. This is going to work the same way as if you were to use just the black strips. But I like this better after playing with the one that I messed up. This is just going to be so much more comfortable for my kids, and it's kids armor, right? Think about that too. So if you want to go accuracy, go for the plastic. If not, this looks fantastic. Nobody's going to know the difference, and your kid's going to be more comfortable. One thing I wasn't quite happy with was the when you put these plates on back here to attach these two, you lose a lot of bend, right? It sticks out. What I'm going to do is I kind of did it in this one. You can see it's a little more concave than the flat piece right here. Is I'm going to take my heat gun to it. This one's a fancy one. You can get these really cheap. Harbor Freight has them. And I'm just going to heat up just the edge that I kind of want to bend. Pretty much just this whole piece right in here. Just the part that I added. And I'm going to heat it up, and then once it's hot enough to bend, I'm just going to bend it kind of in the same arc where it would kind of bend around the back. This plastic, if you've never used a heat gun, ABS plastic is going to go from hard and rigid to soft fairly quickly, and then from soft to melted even quicker. So you got to be really careful with this stuff and pay attention to what you're doing. I'm constantly basically bending it just a little bit every couple seconds just to see if it's at that stage or if it's getting close, because once it gets to where I need it, it turns to liquid shortly thereafter. So take your time. You don't need the heat gun on max blast. Just take your time. It'll get there. Just keep playing with it. You could also do this before you put it on. It might make it a little easier, because you can also do like a hot water method by sticking it in boiling water for a little bit until the plastic becomes malleable. You know, there's different methods of doing it. You can find those on different forums and stuff. But the heat gun is just quick. If you ever need to reshape a piece of armor or something, the heat gun's my first go-to. I've done the bath method in the boiling water, and I don't like it as much, but that's just me. Alright, so this is getting there, and I'm very, very slowly bending it, and it is working wonderfully. Sorry about that, my phone ran out of space, so I'm going to try and make this next part pretty quick. I got it all done. I just very slowly finished heating it up and bending it as it got hotter. This is the first one I did. I'm not as happy with it. It's not as bent. I'll probably go back and make it more shaped like that. That's just going to make sure it sticks better onto your back. And it just follows the right shape. So that is that. Next we're going to go through the shoulder straps. They're already pre-bent for you, so you don't have to do anything special to get them in the right shape. But if they're in the wrong shape for your child, you can obviously reshape them. Same method I was just doing, or hot water. Either would work. But pretty basic concept. Since we're just using your regular old TK shoulder straps, it's just going to glue down either in the back or the front, and then we are going to attach some things. I got to get these guys painted. These are just a mock-up 3D print. The ones that you'll be getting are either going to be vacuum formed or resin. I'm not really sure which one we're going to go with just yet, so we're going to test a couple things and see how they work. And so yeah, that'll be in the next video. Do a little bit of rub and buffing and stuff. So, but thanks for tuning in, guys. If you want to know more, go ahead and subscribe to my channel, or leave me some comments below if you have questions. I'm going to put a link to 850 Armor Works page down below as well. So if you're interested in any of the products, there's a lot of the different helmets and things for the kits that we do at 850. So yeah, if you're interested in anything like that, let us know. Let me know in the comments, and I will continue this build tutorial over the next couple days, hopefully, and get a nice product for you guys. Thanks for tuning in.